So the new Black Cleaver is, I think, really exciting. It opens up a lot of new build options for Urgot, and it's... well, that's pretty much it, really. Like, it's just about the same in armor penetration, like, effectiveness, as the previous iteration of the Black Cleaver. Like, with Last Whisper, Runes, Masteries, and Black Cleaver, you'll only shred through 4 more armor on a target with 200 armor, so honestly, it's not a big difference in that regard. That's taking into account the percentage difference with armor penetration. Like, it used to give 10 flat, doesn't anymore. But I think some of the problems in it lie in its build path, and also some of its pros. It's difficult to fit in a phage early in the lane. It's possible though, and it can actually be used pretty effectively. If you're going for, say, offensive summoner spells, you can totally do that. It will give you this huge movement speed boost once you kill a minion, which will allow you to just kind of bully out your opponent. But then, if you do take it, then you're missing out on potential damage, which would have been found in, say, Brutalizer, or just rushing Manamune, which is a really good idea these days. Now, I feel like I should talk a little bit about the matchup while I go into a little bit more about Black Cleaver, because that's one of the things that I got the most questions about in my previous video. This matchup is, you know, it isn't too bad. As you saw, I missed my Noxian Corrosive Charge, and she still went in, and I was still able to out-trade her because I hit my abilities. That's great. Now Gragas is coming up. He's probably going to take the Scuttle, not really going to do too much, I would think. Although he may look to gank mid or top lane. Now going on with this matchup, Riven, well, pretty much all Rivens these days seem to use their fantastic teleport trick and take a camp and then wallop on the top lane and do their thing, get level 3 before you. So Gragas and Riven showed up. Gragas showed up, and then Riven tried to follow in, tried to make something happen. So I immediately noticed Gragas, and I just ghosted and flashed away because I didn't want to get body slammed by Gragas. And if he did body slam me, they might have been able to chain me up and just potentially kill me. It's debatable whether I would have been able to get out with Flash. But in any case, so in this matchup, in the very early lane, I decided to just hold the wave, just keep it from really going anywhere, because I didn't want to push up to Riven too far, too soon. I wanted it to be a sort of calculated push, so that I would have enough space to retreat if Gragas came along. So that worked out in the end. And you know, the other option is to just push it up all the way, because that will allow you to keep up in levels with the enemy laner who took teleport and who took one of those camps very early on. You can do that too, but you have to keep in mind early ganks, they can always be a boon. So we kind of just trade evenly. I mean, at least if we call my shield being an even trade, and the mana pots I'm just burning through right now. Honestly, no health potions. I might have to consider starting with 3 health potions instead of 2 health potions. It's just, as long as you stay safe these days, just a little safe. The shield, the Terra Capacitor changes are just so potent, and you can survive just about anything. I've noticed that a lot of professional players are maxing Terra Capacitor second these days instead of Acid Hunter, and I'm gonna be looking into that. I maxed Noxian Corrosive Charge first. I mean, sorry, second in this game. It's kind of a toss-up, you know? You go for all that additional damage, and, well, Terra Capacitor, it's giving you just about, when scaling with mana, before the Urgot changes, it's giving you just about as much of a shield as you would have gotten if you had maxed it. But if you do max it these days, you get a huge shield on top of everything, and massive slow. So maybe it is worth skipping out on some armor penetration, and cooldown reduction, and damage. I'll have to look into it. So, with what I had been doing throughout the lane, even though Gragas came up, pulled a gank, and got my summers, and I mean Fiddlesticks showed up, but we weren't able to really do anything because she was kind of far away. Even despite that, I've been going massively up upon her on CS. Now, I realized here I was out of mana, so I ghosted to get away from her, so she wouldn't chase up, and then turns out she had flash. I didn't really have any mana at that point, but it was... I did notice the Fiddlesticks coming over, and so one could say calculated, but I'm willing to leave that one up for interpretation. So here I leave the lane. It's pushing up a little bit, but Riven has teleport, and you know, as Rivens mostly do, like Riven is really great at clearing waves. She could decide to just keep it clear. I mean, hold it by her turret, but I don't know. She pushes it up. I guess in a way that's kind of smart on her part. She wants to get as many levels as she can. She has a little XP advantage, so she could potentially get level 8 before me. And then additionally, I recalled, so she has a little chance to push it up to my turret and reset the lane, while at the same time looking to perhaps make something happen. She could potentially get the Scuttle Crab, she could check for Gromp, but Fiddlesticks took it. And I'm just here farming up. She went for an interesting build path. She started Phage, and she's eventually going to be building that into a Black Cleaver. Now, I guess that could kind of be a pretty good build path for Riven, seeing as it gives 20% CDR. CDR is a stat that Riven massively enjoys. And then if you're a little ahead with a Phage, you can establish a very large lane like dominance. You can just, I mean, Riven is hugely mobile with the skills that she already has, but if you add some movement speed on top of that whenever she attacks something or kills something, it's massive. But I feel that it only works when you're somewhat ahead, and because my CS has been much more effective than this Riven throughout this game, it's not going to be happening. And also because I was able to get away from the gank early on. Had that worked out, I feel like I would have had a pretty bad time, especially with this Riven's build. So she recalled again to get Sapphire Ruby Crystal. Right. So that builds into Kindle Gem eventually. Gragas came up top and I just pushed him out. Now, Ruby Crystal. I got my Manamune, and I'm going to be going for a Black Cleaver this game. Ruby Crystal is a great item. It's like a kind of breath of fresh air for Urgot once you finish your Manamune, because it builds into Kindle Gem, and if you can get that, then it gives you some much needed CDR pretty quickly. It's cheaper than Glacial Shroud, cheaper than Brutalizer, and I've been wanting to find something that builds into it that isn't Spear Visage, which I built on Urgot and still kind of do build it sometimes. It has its own merits, especially when paired with like Warmog's armor. But that's for a tank build with Righteous Glory and stuff like that. So I'm going to back right now, and I've got over 1,000 gold. Probably going to purchase a Kindle gem. Oh, okay. So in this game, I'm not necessarily going for the early CDR. Instead, I want to play with the early Phage. And additionally, it was a little more effective to get a Ruby Crystal, Longsword, and Boots, because that spent everything I had. If I had done a little more, I mean, gotten a Kindle gem, I wouldn't have been able to get Boots. So here, Riven's pushing up, right? This happens kind of often. People are generally pretty safe. Once it gets to a couple minions whittled down and they see the enemy laner coming up, yeah, they back off. So Riven starts to kind of do that. So, right there. I want to go over that one more time. Half speed. This replay is funny. So, I flashed beforehand in a vortex of time. Right. So, I queued just to sort of feint something. Maybe that probably didn't really build into it much, but in any case, it's the flash, the immediate flash ultimate that really did it. And then with Ghost, I was able to just push her down, follow her down to her last, and notice that her flash was just coming up in a couple seconds. This was just a tiny window that I made something come out of. I feel like this has been said over and over again, but it's those little things. Those tiny pieces, those straws you pull, the inches you take, that win a game. The little things you say especially. Team psychology is a point that I want to get really in-depth into later on in sort of a series of videos, because I feel that in general, League of Legends, I mean, I feel like we can be a great community, and I think that we probably are getting a little better, but there are so many things we can do to improve. So more on that later, I guess. Now, my summoners are down, my ultimate's down, Riven's got her ultimate, and I'm running out of mana, so you know, honestly, I'm not worried that she could 1v1 me, but I am worried about what's happening over here. We don't have any ward coverage besides this over here, so if they did decide to, say, come around in some way, I could be in a kind of gankable position. I mean, that's kind of assuming a lot, but like that they would go around this pink ward and this pink ward. But even so, I want to play it safe. So I finish the Phage and get a Kindle gem. At this point, I'm at 22.78 CDR because I take 5% scale. Yeah, 5% scaling glyphs. That's 3 scaling CDR glyphs, and 5% flat glyphs. That's 6 flat glyphs. Yeah. So that alongside the masteries, it takes me up to 15% CDR eventually, and then add on to that the Kindle gem, and it takes me to 22% right now. In the future, that'll be 25 if I just stay at Kindle gem. But with Black Cleaver, that's going to take me to 35%. And if I got it in the next few levels, that would take me to about 33%. Now, I'm saying all this because it's very important that you hit at least 32%. If you don't hit 32%, then it's going to be very difficult to get 4 Acid Hunters in the duration of 1 Noxian Corrosive Charge. And that is a massive boost on your damage. So, when making builds, you have to keep in mind that it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle for Urgot. You need to prioritize mana, penetration, and perhaps most importantly, CDR. Now, you know, Ghost is this great skill, but it has a tiny cooldown, a very small cooldown compared at least to Flash. And so I'm very willing at most any points of the game to force my opponent's Flash by using a Ghost. And more often than not, that actually opens up other opportunities. So I'm going to mid lane right now. I want to make something happen out of this push that the enemy team pulled, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like anything's happening. It was just a little game of push and pull, and now everybody's backing off. Dragon's coming up pretty soon, and I wanted to push that out for Riven, because she has teleport. At least it's coming up soon, and Dragon's coming up soon as well. So I want her to be in a position where she can't really do much. I mean, she's forced to Dragon once it comes up, but this is a little stroke of good luck, I guess. She didn't have any wards around, so I just came on up and was able to 1v1 her because I completely caught her off her guard. So that was great, if unlikely. But one problem there was that it kept me away from my team, and I'm pretty far ahead. Kassadin's still at the point where he's scaling up and he needs some backup. Quite some backup. And something just didn't go right in that team composition. So Riven's just harping on me, telling me the team does need me. And yeah, I do guess so. The team did need me. And throughout the rest of the game, I tried to make that happen. Generally, as I've said before, I try to make things happen outside of the lane very early on, and often I just completely avoid the lane for the rest of the game. Of course, that may be overstating it a little bit, but anyway, we move on to Dragon, and so I'm acting as a sort of human shield for everybody in the backline, and then they come up, my flash is up, so I flash away, and then Kassadin comes on in finally, and that's great. So we're pushing in. I don't have my ghost up, so it's kind of difficult to follow up, but we have Fiddle6 who comes on over. Kassadin with his patented kill steal, but I don't, I'm not gonna say much about that. Thresh with his great pull of CD, just, man. Flash pull, love those things. So, I did get, okay, I'm going to describe my role in that fight a little bit. Now, I was the kind of backlane CDR tank that the professional scene is kind of prioritizing Urgot as. Oh, over here, we've got a little bit of great team synergy with Thresh pulling the Lucian out of my Noxian Corrosive Charge, but that's okay. So, in that team fight, with the Black Cleaver build, and this is especially with the Black Cleaver build, I was this backline kind of utility carry who adds a ton of damage to the fight, but at the time didn't really take up the forefront. Now, if I had more movement speed at the time, I would have been able to get up in their faces. I'd be able to auto attack more, to hit more Acid Hunters, and especially more Noxian Corrosive Charges. But at the time, I wasn't, because I didn't have any real movement speed boosts. My ghost was down, but I did have Black Cleaver. Now, noticeably, it wasn't very noticeable. Like, I didn't even realize that I had Black Cleaver until later on after the fight. Where's the movement speed? Is it doing anything? And honestly, it doesn't give you too much movement speed. Let's take a look over here. We're at 370 currently. I pop Ghost. That takes me up to 459. Now, movement speed, like everything else, stacks multiplicatively, and then that added about 20 movement speed at the very end for 2 seconds. Now, granted, that's with Ghost. When you have, say, better boots with 390, maybe it's a little more. Maybe it is noticeable. I feel like it's a subject for a little more testing, but as is, it's somewhat underwhelming. Still though, the Black Cleaver brought me up to 33.62% CDR, and that allowed me to get a lot of skills off in that fight. Now, with a traditional build, I probably would have gotten, that much CDR pretty quickly. Like say with a Brutalizer and a Glacial Shroud. Now I still advocate that kind of build, Brutalizer, Glacial Shroud, because Yomu's Ghostblade I feel is going to become this huge brass forefront item on Urgot. It's vastly important. It's very strong. Now here, I was just abusing Urgot's sort of offensive potential with his huge tanking capabilities by just ulting in, and combined with the Black Cleaver plus the defensive capabilities of Urgot's ultimate, that was pretty potent. I had 3 people on me just trying to kill me, but it didn't happen. And the rest of my team was able to follow up, and I was kind of lucky that Cassidy got ahead. The bot lane was doing okay. I think they were having some problems earlier on in the game, but we were able to just pull them out. Now, that's a huge push at 22 minutes. I'd like to point out that my Manamune is only 681. It's only charged so much. At 22 minutes, it could be a little better. At 22 to 24 minutes, that's generally when you want to see a Manamune fully charged. But, you know, if you take Telesmite Cindergot, Teleport, and Smite with Cinderhulk, and start on Grump with Utility Masteries, then you can get a level 2 tier. Like, you can get into lane for the very first time with tier, and have 100 stacks within the first 4 minutes. More on that later. So this is just this huge sort of cluster, and I flashed in immediately, just kind of tanked up the forefront, and unfortunately I wasn't able to prioritize the backline targets, but I did pull off a good ult and killed. Oh, I shredded through dragons, and honestly, with the armor penetration build, that's really not a bad thing. Urgot is this huge utility carry, and he can be so much more, but at the very baseline, if you want to be just a utility carry, you can do that too. So my Muramana is finally completed. Thresh being a model citizen. We want to get Dragon. That's a free Dragon. So we're at 2 currently. Not like 5's going to be coming up at any point, but I would like to stress that dragons are still really important leading up to it. What's the third? 5% movement speed. So that goes from 322. Oh. Okay, so it goes up to 399 from whatever it was previously. Now, this fight, I popped Ghost immediately as I was coming in. Speedy got going on to try and find something, see if I can ult Lucian or potentially Rumble if he comes up. But that didn't happen. That's okay. I don't have my distortions this game. But Rumble tries to pull off Sivir, doesn't work. And from here, we are pretty set. It's a good game. So, Black Cleaver. Okay, so what you want to keep in mind when building Black Cleaver is the CDR that it gives. If you want to reach, it's basically, I highly stress that you should reach 32% CDR at the very least. And so from that, you want to move on, you want to build your mastery page and your rune page and your build so that you can allot for that. Now, perhaps you want to go for Black Cleaver and then Frozen Heart. That gives you 40% CDR outside of masteries and runes, but that's pretty inefficient because you get them so late and you want to get that CDR early. So I guess you can, but honestly, I'd suggest picking up Black Cleaver in the absence of Frozen Heart. And that makes sort of a problem, because Frozen Heart is, I feel, more effective than Black Cleaver. So it's difficult to weigh, but I would have to advise going for Frozen Heart in most situations instead of Black Cleaver.